And I think that most of you know that deep down. Even when you're doing the research, even when you're watching videos, you know that deep down all you want is food. But you're afraid, and that's okay. Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kailin and I post new videos every single Saturday with a few sprinkled in between. And I post videos mainly about eating disorder recovery and intuitive eating. So if that's something that you're interested in, I would love for you to click onto that subscribe button and become part of our little family. But in today's video, we are going to be talking about mental hunger. I have a little hot beverage here, so if you want to pause this and go grab yourself a cup of tea or hot chocolate like me or something like that, then please do so. Can you tell that I'm excited for the holidays? I think I added too much cocoa powder. So as I mentioned, today we are going to be talking about mental hunger, which is something that is really common if you have a history with disordered eating, chronic dieting, anything like that. Maybe this video can be helpful for you. I feel like this hairstyle makes me look like the dog from Lady and the Tramp, like a spaniel. Maybe, I don't know. I don't change up my hairstyle too often, so I'm a bit distracted. So without further ado, let's jump right on in with the video. There are varying definitions online, but I feel like the main consensus is that mental hunger are these nagging thoughts that you have surrounding food, and basically where you just can't stop thinking about food. For example, you'll eat a meal, you'll be physically full, but you still cannot stop thinking about food. It's really annoying, it's really exhausting. And I just quickly want to say that the reason we feel mental hunger, okay? The reason that we cannot stop thinking about food is because we're hungry. When you underfuel yourself, or when you do not eat enough, or if you are restrictive with the kinds of food that you eat, your body is going to try to come up with alternative ways to try to communicate with you that you're hungry. For example, if we don't eat enough, our body is really smart and it has to use all of the energy that we're getting to basically keep us alive, right? To keep our heart beating, to make sure that all of our internal organs are working correctly, and some other bodily functions just get neglected because they're not as important as blood flow, for example. So in this case, instead of your stomach growling and being grumbly and feeling physical hunger, your body doesn't actually have the energy to create that kind of hunger sensation in your stomach, so it will send a signal to your brain instead to constantly think about food. And some people have both physical and mental hunger, which is super normal, super common. Most people do. But the thing with this is that your physical hunger isn't always reliable. So you'll feel hungry, but you're still not eating enough. So your body is still depending on that mental hunger and those mental cues for you to eat more. So for example, with chronic dieters, or for people who restrict their food intake or have a background with disordered eating, a lot of people ignore their physical hunger at the beginning, right? They push past the hunger, they create excuses why they can't eat or why they shouldn't eat. And soon, those signals that your body was initially sending you, right, to your stomach are just constantly being ignored. So some people get to the point where they ignore their physical hunger so much that they no longer experience physical hunger at all. And I just want to say that if you don't feel physically hungry, it doesn't mean that you're not hungry. It doesn't mean that you don't need to eat. It just means that your body has to find other ways to communicate with you to tell you that you're hungry instead. And like I mentioned, the main definition for mental hunger is thinking about food and thinking about it all the time. But there are some other symptoms and some other signs that come along with mental hunger, which I will list right here. If you have chronic headaches, lack of energy, if you're thinking about food all the time, so what you're gonna eat, when you're gonna eat, planning out your meals strategically, whatever it might be, feeling annoyed when you're physically hungry, or feeling annoyed when you're thinking about food all the time, so basically being really irritable, if you are impatient or easily rattled, if you have really intense cravings for specific types of food, if you have a lot of anxiety or OCD behaviors around food, things like tearing up food into really small pieces, eating with really small cutlery or on small plates. Those are just some OCD examples. If you suffer from conditional thinking, something like, if I exercise, then I'll be able to eat. And then lastly, if you're feeling dizzy or lightheaded throughout the day, these are all signs and all potential symptoms of mental hunger. And the thing with mental hunger is that it can be really, really easy to ignore, especially if you feel physically full. It can be really hard to push past that barrier and still eat. But the thing is, when we don't give into mental hunger, so if I'm thinking about food all day and I don't eat and I just wait for that physical cue to hit me, we are allowing our eating disorder to win a little bit here. We're basically adding more gas to a burning fire, as someone would say. The goal of your eating disorder is to hurt you. And if you are not eating when you are hungry, whether that hunger is being communicated through your stomach or through your mind, you, in a way, are self-harming. And what I mean by this is that it's going to get a lot harder to give into your mental hunger the longer you put it off. So if you are afraid to give into your mental hunger and you're afraid that you're going to lose control, or you're afraid of just what's going to happen in general and you continue to push it off, your eating disorder voice is just going to get louder, and it's also going to become more persistent because you're constantly aligning your actions with what it wants you to do, which in this case is not eat. And I'm not saying that all eating disorders are restrictive, because we know, if you've been on my channel for more than a couple of videos, that that is not something that I believe. But almost always, if you're experiencing mental hunger, you are restricting in some shape or form. And the longer you put anything off, the harder it gets. So if you are experiencing mental hunger right now, take this as your sign to give in and to let go and to truly begin the process of recovering. Because if you eat when you think about food, you're going to begin thinking about food a lot less frequently, because you are going to be giving yourself what your brain is asking for and what your body needs. But the thing is, my beautiful friends, that it takes time. Mental hunger, or even extreme hunger, which is a topic for another video, we won't be touching on that too much today, lasts varying amounts for individuals. It's not just one set amount. That's probably a question that I get very frequently, is, well, how long will mental hunger last? And there are so many things to factor in, but the basic answer is that I don't have an answer for you, because it's different for everybody. But the only thing that I can guarantee is that if you honor your mental hunger, it will go away. And if you don't, it will not. Something that I think many people forget is that our bodies are wired to care for us. Your body doesn't try to self-sabotage yourself. It doesn't try to hurt you. All that it does is try to care for you the best it can, even if sometimes you stand in its way. So if you deprive your body of anything, it's going to constantly think about it. And it's not something that you can just ignore, because it's something that you need. So every time you give into your mental hunger, despite how you're feeling physically, that is a win for recovery. And the thing is, the more that you give into mental hunger, the stronger you'll be, and the more you'll be able to fend off those ED thoughts as well. And one of my top tips for dealing with mental hunger is to stop offsetting it. When you do a Google search about mental hunger, there are a lot of wonderful, eating disorder helpful tips that come up. However, there are also so many disordered pages that come up that basically tell you to drink a glass of water, to go on a walk. There are these quizzes for you to complete to see if you're actually hungry. All of these are a load of shit, and they make my blood boil like no other. There are these pseudoscience websites trying to trick you to not eat, to fall for more diet culture. And the thing is, if you're thinking about food all the time, or if you are restricting in any way, shape, or form, you are hungry. And you don't need some stupid website or some pseudoscience fitness instructor to tell you otherwise. And I think that most of you know that deep down. Even when you're doing the research, even when you're watching videos, you know that deep down all you want is food. But you're afraid, and that's okay. It's okay to admit that you are scared. But what I want you to try to do is to, for once in your life, trust your body and block out all of that white noise. Block it out. Those remedies that don't even work are just going to hurt you more in the long run. And God, those sites, they literally drive me crazy. And the thing is that many of those wellness behaviors are very disordered. If you're hungry, no, you shouldn't drink a glass of water. You should go and eat. Also, right now, if you are avoiding certain foods, food categories, whatever it might be, I want you to ask yourself, why? When did you begin demonizing these foods? Is there anything actually inherently wrong with them? Is it okay for others to enjoy them but not for you. The only foods that you shouldn't consume are foods that you are allergic to or foods that you do not like. And something else that is really common is I have people saying that they are experiencing extreme hunger, but they're not restricting. And I just want to say that it might not seem like you are restricting, but if you are thinking about food all the time, you are probably restricting in some way. Whether that's not eating the foods you actually desire, waiting too long, compensating with exercise. The list can really go on, but those are all forms of restriction. And the reason that it's so important to be aware of the kind of behaviors that you're currently exhibiting or the kind of restrictive patterns that you have is because they are directly linked to mental hunger. Without any kind of food restriction, mental hunger probably wouldn't exist. Whether that is past restriction or present restriction, they both had to be present at some point for you to experience mental hunger. And I also just want to say that mental hunger is not just for people who are underweight. It's not for people who aren't weight restored. Fat bodies can experience mental hunger, thin bodies, all bodies can experience this. And mental hunger and thinking about food just means that you're underfueling yourself and not eating enough for what your body needs. And what your body needs is very different from what my body needs, from what some celebrity's body needs, from some influencer, from your friend, from your mom. It doesn't matter. You are you, and that's what makes you so special and so unique. Nobody knows you and what you need more than you and your body. And the bottom line is that if you're thinking about food, the only way to stop is to eat. There's no other magical cure. And you don't want to judge what you're eating. You don't want to judge when you're eating. And you also don't want to judge the quantity of food that you eat during recovery or while you're trying to navigate mental hunger. You never want to be judgmental. It doesn't help you, and it definitely doesn't help anybody else. And another tip that I have for you is to stop taking that bird's eye view when it comes to mental hunger. You know, that kind of, I just ate, I can't be hungry. Stop thinking about what happened in the past. Just focus on the moment right now. If you are hungry, if you are thinking about food, doesn't matter that you ate 20 minutes ago, doesn't matter that you ate an hour ago, just eat. Take it meal by meal. And giving into mental hunger has nothing to do with binge eating. If you're curious about binge eating or have more questions, you can always leave a comment down below, but I've also made a complete video about it, which I will also link in the description box. And another tip that I have that I briefly glossed over is to make sure that you're eating what you actually want. Don't try to eat what you're craving by coming up with these alternatives. Eat the real thing, whatever that looks like to you. There is no shame in healing your body and working on your relationship with food. And when you restrict yourself, when you deprive yourself or your body, it's really normal for your body to feel afraid and to feel very unsafe. And all that your body is trying to do by communicating with you through images of food, through thoughts of food, it's trying to heal itself. And what it needs in order to heal itself is food. Nothing else. Not a glass of water, not a walk through the mysterious woods in your backyard. No. It needs a plate of whatever you're thinking about. And I feel like I'm a broken record and I'm repeating myself so many times, but I know that when I was struggling with mental hunger, all that I needed was for somebody to sit me down and have this exact same conversation. For somebody to tell me that I couldn't offset it with water, or I couldn't offset it with movement, or I couldn't offset it with these little herbal remedies that you find online. I suffered from mental hunger for way too long, and if I had given in a lot earlier, I probably wouldn't have suffered for as long as I did. And I hope that this video was somewhat helpful for you, whether that was explaining what mental hunger is, some of my tips and tricks, and also reassuring you that it's okay to be afraid, but that doesn't mean that you don't have to face your fears. But I think that that is going to be it for today's video. If you have any other questions, or if there's anything that I wasn't able to address in this video, please make sure to leave me a kind comment down below, or feel free to send me a message over on Instagram. I hope everybody is having a wonderful day. Make sure to do something kind for yourself, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye guys.